And here we go. Good evening, Rabbi Scheier.
Good evening, Rabbi Fishman.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. It's been said that the only answer to how are you is and how are you, because nobody wants to know the answer. But we're friends. We're close friends. So I feel like we really want to know about each other's lives. So thank you for asking. Doing okay. Sitting outside in the Sukkah, and it's dry. So
I know, right? Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. I think that's one of the most honest answers that I can hear right now, which is I'm doing okay. You know, once upon a time we used to say I'm great, or we wouldn't even listen to the other person's answer before we would tell them about ourselves. And now the question, how are you, is so loaded a question. These are perilous times, difficult times, challenging times.
Yeah, I feel also like, we say it's okay to say that we're okay, but we also have to recognize that our experiences are not shared. It's not like, I'm thinking about this pandemic and comparing it to other kind of tragedies on a global scale or on a larger scale. If you think of a hurricane that kind of hits a whole community and everybody kind of suffers in the same way, but this is very different. People are having very different experiences. For some people, and I think probably ourselves included, aside from the professional challenges, which obviously are there, with our families, we've spent more time because we have young families and have young children, we've spent more time with our families in these last number of months than we ever could have imagined before. And yet there are other people who haven't seen their families in 6 months. And so there's, a little bit of awareness and saying, yeah, I'm doing okay, that not everyone, even though we're all sharing the same pandemic, we all have different realities within that experience.
That's a really insightful comment. I know that everyone is on their own level with their own reality. I spent my day at home. I did not venture out of the house, and there were 4 children, 12 and younger, and my wife who's working online via Zoom, was working. She saw a number of clients today by video conferencing, and I was juggling the kids as well as other synagogue responsibilities. So this has certainly become a new reality for me, and I'm sure for you. Your house, I don't think, is a quiet house either.
No, not by any stretch of the imagination.
L'chaim.
Oh, l'chaim, I didn't bring. Would you share?
Hang on. I'm going from West Island to West Mount. If I pour it into the camera, it will
very much
come out of your screen. L'chaim.
What are we drinking, if you don't mind my asking?
This is a Lagavulin 16.
Oh,
and save it for Sukkot each year.
Very, very nice. Very nice. I would enjoy that very much, and I hope the next time we get together, you'll leave a drop in the bottle, the bottom of the bottle for me.
I also saved one for Hanukkah, and I saved one for Shavuot, and there's one for Purim too.
Well, l'chaim. So you're right about, balancing the household and the professional life, and it's like, to borrow a sports analogy, it's like being a player and a referee at the same time. Because you're making peace over here, and yet you have to move the ball forward over here, and you got to kind of figure out how to make everything work. But we also, we live within an environment, and I think, I know your family very well. I know your wife very well, and my wife very well, and we operate as teams, I think, on many different levels. So it's
on some days that is true.
But for me to say, the burden of the household and the burden of, that would be a bit disingenuous.
Right. No, absolutely. It reminds me of a meme I saw on social media that said along the lines of tidying up the house when all of the children are home is like brushing your teeth while eating Oreo cookies. And yes, there's certainly unique challenges to each and every one of us. Perhaps you can speak not to our personal situations as young fathers. I still see myself as a young father. I know you do as well, especially of young children. But perhaps you can speak more broadly beyond the individual and towards the communal on what this challenge means in your opinion, and what this challenge has to have as a connection with the holiday of Sukkot. We are celebrating Sukkot. We are told it's Zman Simchatenu, time where we have to be happy, try to be happy, are charged with joy. How does that jive when it's a challenge, when it's hard work to put a smile on?
I think that's a great question, and I'll try to answer it, because, and we didn't prepare this. I just want everyone to know we're very close friends, and I want people to know also that, you know, we work together, as do many of the rabbis in this series, or that you've been speaking to, or many rabbis in the community. That we don't live on an island, even though we're making different decisions for different communities, and we have had places where we have differentiated from each other in terms of how we served our community. We essentially do it all in collaboration with each other. And I would say it's not exaggerating for the people listening. It's not exaggerating that Rabbi Fishman and I speak once, twice, 3 times a day. And when it comes to crunch time, and we have to make decisions even more than that, and texting and WhatsApp and with many other rabbis as well. So I think it's important to share that. But you did not share this question with me, so just all the things that we shared, so you didn't warn me about this question. But I'll do my best to answer. How do you put a smile on?
That's because I think some of your best comments and wisdom actually comes from an off-the-cuff, impromptu comment.
Thank you.
Sometimes I've been most impressed when it's been contemporaneous. So that's specifically why I didn't share with you my questions tonight.
Well, I appreciate that. So let me just check my notes before I give you my answer. But in all seriousness, I think there are a few ways to approach this. And I think it all connects to the holiday of Sukkot, because I think there's a lot to learn from the experience that we're having in this moment. So firstly, just to focus on Sukkot, the image of Sukkot, and I think the iconic notion of Sukkot boils down to the etrog, right? That's when you think of Sukkot and you think of the pursuit of perfection or the pursuit of the ideal, it's the etrog. I happen to have one here, happenstance for show and tell, but it's the etrog where we look at it and we examine it and we think of how beautiful it is. And so, but when it comes to actual practice, it's the etrog that gets the short stick, that it's, you know, the etrog is held in the left hand, which is the inferior hand, and it's not mentioned in the blessing when we say Al Natilat Lulav. We don't even mention the etrog. And one explanation, one beautiful insight which I heard, is that because the etrog represents perfection. And when it comes to joy, which this holiday is joy, we can't focus on perfection because we're never going to get it. And if you wait for everything to be perfect to be happy, you're simply never going to be happy. So I think that's one thing, just to realize that here we are, that this is life, and sometimes it's worthwhile just to take a step back and say, let me be happy with what I have, because what I have is quite special.
That's beautiful.
I was reading the other day. I was doing some cleaning in the office last week, which, as you know, as a fellow rabbi, is highly unusual the week between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, to have time to clean and to rummage around the office. This year was different. The focus on logistics, and are we going to have services? Are we not going to have services? What are we going to present? How are we going to present our online options, and so on and so forth? There's so much to do, but I had a few minutes to clean my office, and I pulled out this gem that I'd put away 16 years ago. I had made copies of it and put it in the bottom of a file 16 years ago, and I pulled it out today because I haven't cleaned that drawer in 16 years. And I pulled it out today, and it was an article of Rabbi David Hartman that was published by Shar HaShamayim in 1978. And I was so moved by it. I didn't know it existed. And it talks about, and it's listed, if I Googled this particular article, and it's mentioned all of Rabbi Hartman's biographies, or the bibliography, and it shows, you know, he wrote so many different ways, or dozens and dozens of books. And this one was published by Schocken Press, and this one was published by University of whatever press, and all of it. And then there's one that's published by The Gate Press. And I realized The Gate Press is Shar HaShamayim published one book of Rabbi Hartman, and they created The Gate Press for this purpose. And he writes about the challenge to religion and the challenge to religious life. And he writes that traditionally the challenge to religion was on the religion's merits itself. And, you know, you would challenge Judaism because Judaism believes that God is such or God is such, and let's challenge that based on logic and based on philosophy. But the modern challenge to religion doesn't challenge religion of itself. It challenges religion because of what he calls the triumphant man, which is the idea that man can do everything. Because we have technology, because we have creativity, because we have innovation, we can do everything. And if we can do everything, then what are you praying for? Or what are you waiting for God to do? If really it's just a matter, why are we praying to God to end a pandemic when really it's just a matter of some people in a laboratory getting the right vaccine and the distribution channels working in the way that they can, and the country purchasing the right amounts and distributing in the right way and implementing the right way? Then what are we praying for? Why do we pray for people to be healed when we could just send them to the hospital and let the doctors do the healing? And if they can't do the healing, they just need to study more, and we need to advance more in terms of progress. They said that's the major challenge to religion. But I think what we've experienced now, as I sit here in the sukkah and I can hear the wind outside, I'm a little bit nervous, but I think it should be okay. But sukkah represents frailty. It represents those parts of life that simply mean that we're not in full control because we're exposed to the elements to a certain degree, and that very much responds to the claim that man can do everything, that humanity can achieve everything. And we say no. Religion offers us the view that yes, we are powerful. Yes, God has given us wisdom and the ability to do certain things. But at the end of the day, there's that part that we need to bridge, and that can only be bridged with faith. And so that's my message for Sukkot that I've been taking with me, is that I don't think that we have felt as a community as vulnerable as we feel right now. Not only speaking about a Jewish community, as a world. I think there is a deep vulnerability to this virus that we can't see and we don't completely understand. And we're coming, every day that passes, we come to a fuller and fuller understanding. But at the end of the day, we're not in control. As I saw one rabbi said, that we should never think that things are out of control. We should just know that they're out of our control. And that's my sukkah experience, is that feeling vulnerable, but embracing that, because that's where faith resides.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think many synagogues, and I'm speaking on behalf of Montreal now, have been truly exceptional in terms of how we have made efforts to reach out to our congregants, how we have created social programming, welfare programming, caring programs, whether it be the delivery of food, telephone call committees, or what have you, to allow people, especially those vulnerable, especially those alone, to know that they're not alone. And actually the heart and soul of a synagogue is a community, and if not in bricks and mortar, and if not in physical attendance with one another, then certainly on the end of a phone call, the end of an email, where we share with people our company with them in a variety of ways. Synagogues have really doubled down on this. And as I look around the Montreal synagogues, it's been a beautiful thing to see. As we now are beginning the second wave, as we are into the second wave, let me ask you a challenging question. Of course, one I don't assume you can know the answer to, but in your opinion, with your thoughts, with your sense, and it's a two-pronged question. Firstly, what do you anticipate the next couple of months are going to look like for our city, as far as the virus, as far as the lockdown, as far as the growing numbers and the trends of where we currently are? What do you believe the next couple of months are going to look like? And secondly, in response to those anticipations, what do you believe the role of synagogue leadership and synagogue volunteers will be in response to the immediate short-term future for our city?
It's a deep question. It's a great question. I think one of the lessons that we've all learned is not to predict anything. Is that we can't plan more than a week in advance now, because everything could change. But I appreciate where the question is coming from, and I think it's an important thing to consider, because basically that's all we're doing right now, is wondering what next week is going to look like, and the week after, in terms of our programming and our offerings. I think, as we're all sensing, the change in weather will bring about a change in our routines. The outdoors has been an absolute gift for us during this experience. It's allowed us to feel connection, to make connection, to spend time with friends, as Rabbi Fishman, you and your wife and I and my wife have on occasion. And that simply being outside and what the beautiful Montreal summer allows us to do. I'm reminded of just my own experience. I was interviewed at Scheier, and they brought me in May. and how wise that was to bring a potential rabbi and a candidate in May to Montreal, because you see what can be. You see the potential, what it can be, and I think we've experienced that potential a lot over. It's really been a beautiful, beautiful spring and summer. But here we are in our perhaps matching matching sweatshirts, and experiencing the other kind of Montreal, which means that we have to stay inside more, which means that we have to be a bit more alone. And I think the role of community is really to bridge that loneliness and to make sure that we stay connected. We used to say, it was Rabbi Manny Foreman, who was the interim rabbi at Shar Shamayim. He taught me in the first year on Sukkot, he would get up right after 5 days after Yom Kippur. For 5 days after, the synagogue is packed, thousands of people sitting there. And he used to say that there's a greeting in Hebrew. You say, Bruchim Habaim, which is, I guess, welcome are those who are coming. You say, Bruchim Hanimsaim, welcome to those who are there. And then on Sukkot, in our big synagogues, you say, Bruchim Hanisharim, blessed are those who have stayed, who have remained behind. And I feel like I've been thrown off a little bit because the high holidays, we all have, because the high holidays were so, say, poorly attended, but so sparsely attended because of the pandemic. Whatever we did for the high holidays, it certainly was on a very, very small percentage of what our full potential is as a community. Mm-hmm. Now we're not kind of reveling in the glow of that experience of being all together, but doing our best to maintain a connection. And I feel we're going to stay more connected after this high holiday period than we ever have before. I feel like as a community, people are yearning for connection. We're learning more and more. This program is a great example of how you've adapted. You've brought voices from the community to your community and put it on social media so it's accessible to people all over the world. That's an extraordinary initiative that likely wouldn't have happened at least in the same way before. So I think I think of what it means to be part of a community. We have different communities, and I was once taught that there are two different types of synagogues. There's the shul and there's the shtibel. Right? So the shul is kind of the important institution, and the shtibel is the Hamish, is the place where everybody, where everybody's welcome, where everyone knows your name, right? That's the shtibel. And there are shuldika shtibels, which means that there are small communities that do things in a grand way and aspire to be more formal than they are. And there are shtiba dika shuls, which means that there are major institutions, but they do everything in their power to feel like family, to feel Hamish. And I feel like that's what our respective communities, we've been seeing it all over. I feel like that's what's been happening, is that these large institutions where people kind of show up once or twice a year, or for the most part, of course, there's always the core of regular attendees, and people over the years develop relationship with clergy, but it takes many, many years. And now suddenly we've entered into a much closer relationship, into a deep connection. We've become more like a shtibel, even while maintaining our presence as a shul, as an institution.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. What that makes me think of is that there are different groups of people within the community. We have our prayers, we have our learners, we have our, let's say, retirees, we have our golden ages, we have our nursery programming. We've got our young families who will never miss a Hanukkah event or a Purim carnival. I've discovered a new group, and it's our volunteers who, I think for the first time, so many new volunteers have come out of the woodwork. Mm-hmm. We've had general volunteers who wear the synagogue on their sleeve. Their hearts are on their sleeve when it comes to just, what can I do? How can I do it? What do you need me for? And that list of people are the most beloved individuals. You ask them to climb up a mountain and they'll ask you in the morning or the afternoon. And what I've discovered when we have been doing various missions to our community, various car runs, various phone calls, is a new group of beloved individuals who somehow or other fell into one of the various categories that I would have associated them falling into. And now they've come on board in this new self-created category. These are the people who are volunteers that are looking for more.
Mm.
And it is a rabbi's dream to have this group, because so much of what we do takes place in that gray area where we need to rely on others for magic to happen. From an idea taking shape in a person's mind to that doorbell being pushed with a person delivering a challah or a cheesecake or whatever it might be, there's that gap in between. And that gap is the volunteer who can say, I want to roll up my sleeves, I want to get involved, I want to help, and success of shuls, I really believe, can by a large degree rest in those people's hands. And it's a beautiful thing for me to have rediscovered, and new faces and new names who have now been saying, I want to get involved. Where can I find an opening for me to come and help out? And I'm listening to what it is that you're saying, a Stiebel-Dicker shul.
Mm.
And I think that the closeness can be created by those people that just want to volunteer. I'm remembering a great line by an individual. I was once pushed into this wonderful leadership program that McGill University was offering for school administrators here in Montreal. Don't ask me how I got into this program. I didn't have any of the right credentials, yet somebody decided that it would be valuable for me to take this leadership program out of McGill. One of the individual teachers, the professor, said, remember this, every single person wants to make a contribution to your organization. They just want to make it on their terms and in their way. If you find that they are not making a contribution, you haven't yet discovered their terms and their way. But everyone wants to make a contribution. And it was one of those golden nuggets that has always stuck with me.
I think that's a beautiful insight, and you said it beautifully. I won't, restate your words. Yeah, I think what you described as your own experience certainly was our experience at the Scheier. And if your synagogue is, strong professional team is really, it's essential.
Absolutely.
But if it's to the exclusion of volunteers, then it's simply not a community.
Right.
So really, I think we have felt that sense of people caring for each other. People, I just I checked the list of attendees, and I'm looking at the people who are listening to this on the Zoom presentation, and I'm seeing the names of people who were so instrumental in all of this, and making phone calls and delivering meals and shopping in the supermarket and delivering the food and doing all the things that the Scheier HaShamayim family did for each other. And I won't speak individually, but as I'm seeing the names, I'm thinking of individual anecdotes of people who made a difference, who alerted us to something, who was somebody who was in need, who spoke to someone in their last days or weeks and reached out from the synagogue. And these connections would not have happened otherwise. So I think talking about appreciating the blessings that we have, I think that certainly is one of them, that we've seen the sense of not just volunteer. That kind of short sells what they've been doing. Volunteer speaks, I think, to to their role in the pay scale and as non-salaried, but it really is these are the ones who make it a community. We
Right.
could feed people, we could call people, we could do the programs, we could do all of those, but without the volunteers, that's just that's a Jewish service, but it's not community in what really makes a difference for people.
Absolutely. Changing topics drastically. I want to go completely in a different direction. When you just spoke about appreciation, one on a more light-hearted note, one of the things I'm very appreciative for is that you're actually appearing live on Zoom with me this evening. And I'll explain to you the reason I'm very happy about this. And I'm sure that this is, it goes both ways. Zeh nehena v'zeh nehena, says the Talmud. This one benefits and that one benefits. People have come up to me completely random strangers who I've never met before. And they have congratulated me, they have thanked me, and they have praised me. And it goes along the lines as follows. Rabbi Scheier, you spoke so beautifully last week in the Shar Shemayim. And I'm Rabbi Fishman. I'm at the Beth Tikva. And more than one occasion, people have confused me with you. And I would like, for the record, whoever those people are, maybe they're watching this evening, we are two different people. We don't even look or sound. There are very, now we happen to both be wearing a navy blue hoodie.
I think Rabbi Fisher, I think it could be because we go to the same barber. I think that's, or at least have similar styles in that sense. But I think also
I asked for the Rabbi Adam.
There you go. I remember that on the we were on the mega mission, on the Federation mega mission together. We were leading our respective communities on the mega mission, and somebody came up and of course said something to me about you and you about me, and we were having a chuckle about that, and we had this conversation. And then the next morning they printed, I don't know if you remember this, but they printed their daily, we each submitted a Devar Torah for the daily kind of gazette that they would hand out to all the rooms of the members. And you had a Devar Torah, but they accidentally printed it under my name. So beyond my being confused for you, it was a legitimate, all day people were coming up to me and saying, that was a beautiful piece, a beautiful piece. So I unlike you, you set the record straight. You tell people that you're not me. I just say thank you. I take it.
It's a very humbling honor to be compared to you. So I have to tell them the truth and set them straight. I'd like to thank you for your time. This was a pleasure. I know that the summer afforded Abby and yourself on an occasion or two to come over when there was appropriate social distancing allowed, and Sarah and I were able to host you. And it was a pleasure then, and it continues to be a pleasure now to be able to speak with you, to schmooze with you, to discuss community, to discuss synagogue, to discuss Montreal and Sukkot. And in general, I would like to say thank you so much to you for everything that you do, for the leader and the leadership that you exhibit, and for our friendship in particular. Thank you so much, Rabbi Scheier.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure to join you for this conversation, or really for any conversation, as we do have many. Yes. And I'll share kind of on behalf of the Shar Shemayim community, Rabbi Fishman, before he was Rabbi Fishman, usually when we tell stories about rabbis before they were rabbis, they're embarrassing stories. But the only story I have to tell about Rabbi Fishman before he was a rabbi is that he was teaching Torah at Shar Shemayim for our afternoon school program. And I think for us, what a victory in terms of being a talent scout, in terms of discovering this extraordinary teacher who loved Judaism and conveyed it with such passion. And if we have any chelek in your success, then we are very fortunate as a community, because you've done really extraordinary work in your community and in the Montreal Jewish community. You truly are a great leader of our community. So we are very fortunate to have this connection.
I think you certainly do have a share in my success, and that's because I have your number on my speed dial every time I've got a difficult question that comes up. So you certainly do, and I have no problem sharing that publicly. There are rabbis, and then there are rabbis. And
you're not sharing the number publicly. You're sharing.
God bless you, Rabbi Scheier, and please send my very best to Abby. You should have a good evening. Please stay healthy, stay strong, and continue doing the exceptional work you are doing. It is appreciated not only within your own synagogue, but above and beyond the horizons of the Shar HaShamayim, all the way from Westmount. Your impact is felt here in the West Island.
Thank you.
So, Chag Sameach, and thank you very much.
Modim l'simcha, Chag Sameach, be well.
Modim l'simcha, thank you.